Have you ever wondered why some thoughts simply won't let you sleep anymore? Or why, as you begin to think more clearly, the world around you seems to grow more hostile? And here's the most unsettling question. Is your clarity actually a burden, or your greatest power?
Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." He also warned us, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. But what happens when that chaos becomes so intense, so deep, that it not only transforms you, but begins to shake those around you? At some point in life, we all feel the pain of being different. You start thinking for yourself, questioning rules, rejecting ready-made paths. And what do you get in return? Sideways glances, awkward silences, jokes disguised as concern. Few will say it out loud, but you can feel it. Your mind is becoming too strong for their comfort. This video is a brutal invitation, not for those seeking peace, but for those seeking truth. Not for those who want to applaud pretty phrases, but for those willing to break away from everything fragile, shallow, and inherited. Here, I won't offer you easy answers. I'll offer you a confrontation with the ideas Nietzsche left behind like philosophical dynamite, and that still explode within us to this day. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you refuses to keep living on autopilot, and that part deserves to be heard, unearthed, lived. Because a truly strong mind isn't born from comfort, it's born from chaos, from loss, from silence, and from the courage to keep thinking, even when that means losing everything. You start to change. At first, it's small things, discomfort with shallow conversations, unease when following senseless orders, a quiet aversion to opinions repeated like mantras. And then, without realizing it, you become strange to others. But what's really going on? Why does a growing mind bother people so much? The answer is both painful and liberating. Your transformation threatens the silent pact of mediocrity. When you begin to break the mold, it's not just you who changes. You unintentionally expose the stagnation of those around you. You become a mirror that reflects what many avoid seeing, that they could be more, think more, live more. But they chose not to. Nietzsche understood this better than most. He didn't see awareness as a light blessing, but as a burden only the strong can carry. Most people don't want the truth. They want reassurance. And when you start giving up that reassurance, when you stop seeking approval, stop repeating inherited truths, stop pretending, you become a threat to order, to superficial peace, to collective comfort. What almost no one tells you is that deep thinking comes with a high social cost. You lose connections. You lose the innocence of certain friendships. You lose the right to belong without pretending. People don't kick you out, but they drift away. And that distance hurts. You miss being accepted, even knowing that the price of acceptance was the denial of yourself. And this is where many people turn back. They silence their new thoughts, swallow their doubts, put the mask back on, because it hurts less. Because being accepted still feels more valuable than being real. But Nietzsche would challenge, become who you are, and who you are cannot be shaped by the fear of disappointing others. Building a strong mind isn't about seeming wise. It's about holding on to unpopular ideas without needing the world's permission. It's about resisting the urge to shrink just to keep others comfortable. It's about staying lucid when everything around you screams for you to settle. The moment you start scaring people is not the moment you become dangerous. It's the moment you start becoming free. Because only those willing to pay the price of no longer being just one more in the crowd will scare those who think differently. And that's the first sign, other people's discomfort. If they're avoiding you, judging you, silencing you, maybe that's a good sign. Maybe it's because you've finally started thinking for yourself. And for most people, that is unbearable. Nietzsche didn't want you to be happy, at least not in the superficial sense the world tries to sell. He wanted you to be whole. And for him, being whole meant accepting chaos, pain, and conflict, and using them as raw material for the great masterpiece. Yourself, he wrote. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. Many take this phrase as poetry, but it's actually a brutal diagnosis. Chaos for Nietzsche wasn't just any disorder. It was the deep discomfort of being awake in a world that prefers to sleep. It was feeling too much, thinking too much, desiring more than what you're told is allowed. And it's in that dark place where the mind begins to grow stronger, not by surrendering, but by confronting. Most of us have been trained to run from chaos. We seek distraction, entertainment, quick relief. But Nietzsche teaches the opposite. It's through diving into pain that we find meaning. It's when we stop asking, why me? And start asking, what can I do with this? That transformation begins. Suffering then stops being punishment and becomes fuel. Think about the times you grew the most. They didn't happen during moments of stability. They came during the fall, when everything collapsed, when you had to rebuild yourself with your own hands. And even if you didn't realize it, you were already living out a Nietzschean truth. That which does not kill me makes me stronger. But beware, chaos alone is not enough. It can destroy just as easily as it can create. What makes the difference is what you do with it. Nietzsche knew that one could lose their mind staring into the abyss. He himself lived on that edge, dancing between lucidity and breakdown. That's why true power lies in moving through chaos with an inner center, with a core, with a will that refuses to bend. That's the difference between being a victim of suffering and being your own forger. An unbreakable mind is not the one that avoids chaos, but the one that walks through it on its own feet, even if trembling. And that's not something you learn from self-help books. It's something you discover in sleepless nights, in silent tears, in the hard choices no one sees. Nietzsche proposes a brutal break, abandoning the idea that strength is softness. For him, to be strong is to endure the unbearable and come out the other side more whole, even more dangerous, because now you know who you are. And no one can manipulate someone who truly knows themselves. You start to realize that you no longer need to prove anything, that you don't need to fit in, and that this freedom, though frightening, is the greatest gift that suffering can give you. It's the soul being forged in the heat of pain, like steel, which only becomes unbreakable after going through fire. That's what Nietzsche meant when he spoke of strength. Not muscles, not appearance, but a spirit that has bled, fallen, lost, and still chose to stand. Because there is something inside it that neither the world, nor chaos, nor pain can destroy. The decision to no longer run from oneself. Imagine standing at the edge of existence, and no one is there. No divine voice, no manual, no promise that everything will turn out fine. That's exactly where Nietzsche places you when he introduces one of the most controversial and misunderstood ideas in modern philosophy. God is dead. But Nietzsche isn't celebrating shallow atheism. He's issuing an existential warning. What died wasn't just a religious belief. It was the comforting illusion that meaning is ready-made, handed to you, something that absolves you from the responsibility of living consciously. When he says God is dead, what dies along with him is the excuse, the God willed it, the it's destiny, the there's a greater plan. And without those crutches, you find yourself naked in the face of chaos. With no heaven to look up to, only one direction remains, inward. This is the moment of radical autonomy, a silent yet violent turning point. Life no longer comes with subtitles. You no longer follow orders. Now you create. You create values. You create meaning. You create what is right, not because someone told you to, but because you chose it. That's terrifying, because there's no one left to blame. Everything is yours. Your falls, your choices, your pain, your strength. Nietzsche throws you into a world without guarantees, but in doing so he also gives you a brutal gift, freedom. And not just any freedom, but the kind that weighs heavily, one that demands maturity, that demands sacrifice. Because to be truly free is to no longer depend on anyone's approval, not even from the divine figure that once guided you. This is the shift many can't handle. When they realize they're alone, they rush to create new dependencies. They run to gurus, doctrines, ideologies. They look for anything that shields them from the anxiety of having to be their own creator. But Nietzsche would say, you must become the author of your own life. Do not follow the herd. Surpass yourself. The death of God is, in truth, the birth of responsibility, and with it comes true strength, the ability to live without needing to hide behind a pre-packaged purpose. But this strength comes at a price, isolation, because few have the courage to face that kind of freedom. Most people prefer to be led. They prefer rules, commandments, promises of reward. But the one who commits to their own creation inevitably walks alone. It's in that silence that the mind grows stronger. Not because it's protected, but because it's aware, because it has accepted that life has no inherent meaning, and still chooses to live it with intensity, with clarity, with integrity. This is the birth of the creative spirit, of the being who, when faced with nothingness, chooses to build something, who, in the absence of guarantees, plants their flag, who, even without applause, keeps going, because what drives them is no longer external. Nietzsche pushes you toward the abyss, not so you will fall, but so you'll discover you know how to fly. There comes a point in the journey when you no longer seek approval, no longer crave belonging, and no longer wait to be saved. That's when something inside you changes irreversibly. You're no longer trying to appear strong, you are strong. And that strength, paradoxically, reveals itself in silence, in solitude, and in the unwavering decision to keep going even when everything around you pushes back. Nietzsche called this being the Übermensch, the overman, the one who rises above human conventions, above herd morality, above guilt and the need for acceptance. This being doesn't adapt, they transform, they don't settle, they create, and above all, they don't bow, they rise. But the path to this state is brutal, because it demands that you kill everything that was imposed on you, the inherited beliefs, the ready-made truths, the dreams that were never yours. And in that process, you lose people, places, and even versions of yourself that no longer serve you. It's almost like dying before truly living. True freedom, therefore, isn't doing whatever you want. It's no longer needing to justify yourself. It's living in alignment with an inner force that refuses to negotiate with mediocrity. And that, inevitably, is intimidating. Not because you become aggressive, but because you become unreachable. You begin to belong only to yourself. This is the most radical liberation Nietzsche proposes. A being who not only lives in the world but imposes meaning on the world. A being who doesn't expect to be understood, but leaves their mark simply by existing with fierce authenticity. But unlike what's often sold out there, this state isn't glamorous. It's lonely. It's full of doubts. It's marked by loss. Yet it carries a glow that nothing can extinguish, the light of an awakened consciousness. You begin to see the social game, the subtle manipulations, the logic of the herd, and most importantly, you stop being a prisoner to it. Nietzsche knew that few would be able to endure this journey. He himself ended up isolated, labeled insane, rejected by many. But as he wrote, those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who couldn't hear the music. And that's exactly it. The free mind dances to a tune that few can even hear. In the end, what Nietzsche offers is not a path to cheap happiness, but to uncomfortable truth. He doesn't want you to feel good. He wants you to wake up. Because only those who wake up can truly begin to live. To be truly free is to be the creator of your own destiny. It's living without apologizing for who you are. It's carrying the pain of lucidity with dignity. And above all, it's refusing to live small just to fit into the world of those who think shallowly. This is the kind of mind that frightens others, because it doesn't depend, because it doesn't need, because it simply is. You made it this far. You read, you felt, you thought, and maybe at some point along the way, you felt the weight of something breaking inside you. If it was uncomfortable, good. This video wasn't made to please you. It was made to wake you up. Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted to trigger internal earthquakes. He wanted you to burn your existential crutches, tear off your masks, face the dark night of the soul, and be reborn, more whole, more conscious, more free. And as we've seen, that freedom comes at a cost, a high cost, but it also comes with a reward no one can give you and no one can take away: self-possession. I know what it's like to go through this. I remember a time in my life when I started questioning everything, the way I behaved in groups, the goals I claimed to have, even the way I smiled. Everything felt so rehearsed, so automatic. I was surrounded by people, yet completely alone inside. And it was in that solitude that the real work began. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't light, but it was real. And that's when I finally understood what Nietzsche meant by, you must become who you are. Maybe that's where you are now. Maybe you're losing people, doubting everything, feeling like a stranger. I get it. And I'm telling you, don't back down. Because what you're building is rare. It's sacred. And yes, it's going to scare people. It's going to make others uncomfortable. It's going to make many look at you like you've lost your mind. But the truth is, for the first time, you're actually awake. Now I want to offer you something that's not for everyone, but it is for you. Because you made it here, searching for deeper answers about who you are and where your life is going. I created something that goes beyond a book. I built a map for the soul, A manual that brings together science, philosophy, and critical thinking to help you break mental patterns, question your identity, and rebuild yourself from the ground up. This isn't an ebook filled with pretty quotes. It's a guide for those who can no longer stand to live on autopilot. If you feel like something inside you is calling for change, for growth, for clarity, then this is your moment. Click on the pinned comment and access the Manual of Self-Transformation now. Don't read it out of curiosity. Read it because your life depends on it. And if you decide to begin this journey, you won't be the same by the end of the road. If this content stirred something within you, I ask you, leave a comment. But don't just write anything. Write something you're afraid to say. A truth that's been stuck in your throat. A thought no one accepts, but that represents who you truly are. This space is yours. Use it to set yourself free. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? Come on, don't be afraid. The subscribe button doesn't bite, but honestly, it might scare you. Because by clicking it, you're saying you want more truth, more depth, more challenge. And that, my friend, is not for the faint of heart. Now, a final warning, with a touch of mystery. There's a video popping up on your screen right now. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, because if I did, I'd rob you of the pleasure of being shocked. Click if you dare. I'll just say this. After watching it, you won't be able to think the same way ever again. I'll see you there. And remember, you're not alone. You're just ahead of the curve. And that, as Nietzsche would say, is dangerous. But it's also liberating.